What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what news is coming out for the week that's going to be very important as we have FOMC in the middle of the week and Apple's earnings later on. I'm also going to be talking about some news affecting Tesla, what you should be watching for as a Tesla investor. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. This offer ends in just 2 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So Tesla was up about 0.75% for the day on Friday, but Tesla basically popped in the morning very, very nicely thanks to Amazon's earnings and the bullish PCE numbers. But then the market started to sell off and Tesla ended up selling off, barely closing in the green. The market is still very, very weak. And the question now that remains is the market going to continue to sell off aggressively, or will buyers try to defend it this week? I have a very good answer for that later on in the video, but let's first talk about some data affecting the markets and things like this very quickly. So the fear and greed index is still on extreme fear mode. That tells us that there is more potential for downside. The market could still sell off. Now, is the market bottoming? Well, we're likely in a bottoming process looking at the different technical indicators, such as the McCullough Volume Summation Index. I believe the market could see a massive bounce when people least expect it. However, that does not necessarily mean that the market is done selling off. The market could still sell off, as I mentioned yesterday and in my previous videos. We could continue to see the market look weak. And I think that there's more potential for that to affect Tesla. Now, with this happening, there's going to be another factor affecting how this market moves, and that's going to be on Wednesday because we have the FOMC meeting. We have Jerome Powell giving a very important speech and the Fed's next rate hike decision. So this could cause the market to reverse on Wednesday. There's a real possibility of that, or it could cause the market to continue to remain very bearish. So we're going to be watching this very carefully. This is going to be a massive, massive catalyst for the future. But for tomorrow specifically, right, because FOMC is going to be on Wednesday, tomorrow is going to be Monday, all we have is the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That's some manufacturing numbers that could cause some volatility. Then the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. Whatever this causes is going to cause the market to move in one or the other direction. So watch that very carefully. Expect some volatility at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time or for the first 2 hours. And then after that, the market's not going to have much else to be like reacting to in terms of data. And that's pretty much it for tomorrow's data. Now, we also have some very important earnings. We have SoFi and McDonald's in the morning announcing their earnings. And we just have like Pinterest and just a couple of others like oil rig companies after the market closes. Nothing too big for Monday. But for Tuesday, we have AMD and Pfizer, a couple of others for the health sector, not to mention AMD. And then going into Wednesday, we have PayPal and Roku. Then we have Thursday's Aapl being the biggest one for the week. Aapl is going to be massive. Shopify is pretty big too, but not as big as Aapl. So get ready for Thursday. But we're not really there yet. So we're just going to be watching these few first, and then we're going to be talking more about that later. So for now, I want to talk about some other pieces of news affecting Tesla. Tesla has this new stealth gray color that has come out for their models. It looks very, very good for the S and the X, which is awesome news for them. And I think that this could bring in some more potential buyers. However, despite that, there is still a risk of a lack of demand for Teslas, especially looking at Chinese numbers so far. So I want to be very careful looking at how earnings was looking. As long as Tesla tries to maintain their numbers, they could still be in a decent place. Because their margins may have to be risked because of it, this could put Tesla into more bearish positions, and there is still a risk of downside looking at how earnings went. So we want to be very careful with all of that coming out. There's some news that came out that there have been buyers of $100 million worth of Teslas charging hardware, as we're starting to see more interest in this sector, and this is going to be potentially interesting. Now, the thing that's very interesting is as time goes on, we're starting to see the new BP Pulse branded chargers show up in a variety of places, and they're once again very interested in what Tesla's doing with these different facilities. So by getting control over the stations, this will give them a grip over the company and such. But what Tesla's trying to do right here, right, the BP Pulse network with Tesla's industry-leading hardware. That's going to be a major like collaboration that's going to help to open high speed and open access charging for infrastructure in the USA. Now, with the infrastructure power Tesla has, and alongside this could be some pretty good news for the longer term because it's going to incentivize more of these different charging companies to just be a part of it, and it just gives Tesla more power nonetheless. So this could be very interesting for them going forward. Big deals like this could be announced very soon, so that's something worth noting. Moving forward, there's this news right here that came out about Tesla. Hold on one second. Looking at Tesla, we have this news that the Model 3 and Model Y are the most popular EVs for the US fleets. That's basically a fact, as Tesla is very popular still in the US. And I'm hoping for a very strong Q4 to end the year. But so far, looking at inventory levels, the inventories are still kind of flat right now. They're not really moving too much. This is the inventories for the Model 3, the Y, the S, and the X. Very flat. So we're seeing some demand increases, but this was as a result of more price cuts. And with the price cuts going on, I mean, it's still hurting Tesla. Their margins are just not looking that great. And things could continue this way for many months to come, if not for the next year. However, with the Cybertruck coming out soon, this could help Tesla improve to some extent. So we're going to be watching that over the next couple of weeks for the next launch event. As far as Tesla goes, looking at the shorting, we saw more shorting going on as I announced over the last couple of days. The price price ratio is still down here, so it's not that far from average. We're continuing to see daily seasonality very flat for Tesla. So we tend to be green about 53% of the time on Mondays. Don't forget that November tends to be a much stronger month than October, but we're still in October. So there is still potential for downside. We're not necessarily done yet. Watch for more volatility around noon and 2 p.m. for Tesla. And that's pretty much it for now. The volume is about 95 million, so it's on low volume mode. So not a whole lot is going on for now. Now, when it comes to Tesla, I want to just call out that Tesla could be heavily dictated by Apple for the week alongside the trend that the whole market is on. And I think that Apple is going to set the pace for us moving forward. So Apple has a potential bear flag developing on the chart. You guys can see that it's flagging right over here. And we have these imbalances to fill, so I could see Apple pump a little bit. Might see a little pop when we open up on Monday, a little attempt to get up to about 170 on Apple, maybe about 169 depending on where we are on the different EMAs. But for now, Apple, I'm going to talk about Apple first. Apple is not looking the best in terms of this setup because we're approaching our 20 EMA, which is acting as resistance historically for the last couple of trading days, and this is very close to 169.5. So I believe Apple could get very close to 169, if not 170, in this range right here. And we could see a big rejection off the flag, and this could lead to another sell-off right before FOMC. So I could see that happening. It depends on if we break below this trend line, and I think that Apple may pop and drop looking at the current setup. And I believe that this is going to dictate the overall algo flow, which means Tesla is going to follow the trend most likely. I could see Tesla making attempts to rebound. We have some resistance coming up ahead of us. In order for this thing to turn bullish, you want to see Tesla break and hold and close above 212. If we do so, there is going to be potential for upside. If we fail to do so, there's going to be a risk of downside. All right. So I think Tesla could rebound a little bit when we open up. It's going to try to get close to this 210 area, try to fill this imbalance around 210. We could go a little higher depending on how strong Tesla looks, but then it might just fail. It might just continue to sell off. Now, could this be an inverse head and shoulders on Tesla? Is Tesla about to start launching? I mean, if that's the case, you want to see it break and hold 212. But because of the fact that Apple's looking relatively weak, there's a higher probability of this playing out. The bullish case would be we just like keep going above 212 and we just try to keep pumping thanks to the inverse head and shoulders here. But there's no guarantee that that's going to be the case because of how Apple's looking. So it's more probable that we fail to break out above 212 and we just see Tesla reject and just continue selling because we're on a downtrend still and there's no change in market structure just yet. All right, so we might see a little pump on Tesla, then a drop. If we get above 212, that's when you're going to turn bullish and we manage to hold it. But for now, we haven't really done that. And the odds favor this thing kind of like popping, then rejecting. So I could see it coming back down to the next liquidity zone. There is definitely a risk of Tesla eventually coming down by Tuesday to this like 202.5 to 203.5 level. And whether or not we break 200 is going to be very important for Tesla. We'll see what happens after FOMC, but approaching FOMC, there could be more downside for the markets. We also have a flag-like pattern developing on SPY. We could see SPY slowly uptrend to either 412 or 413. 413.3 is where we have some resistance, also at 412.5 are two zones to be watching for. And then for support, if we end up breaking below the low we made from Friday, there's a risk of it coming down to 408, 406.5, then 404. However, 404 is going to be the most important support. That's the most critical support for the gap fill. So watch that as critical support. We have some minor support levels right here. And I think the most likely possibility would be SPY kind of pops a little bit, tries to get back to 412.5 to 413.5. It basically tries to fill this imbalance all the way up here. And we end up rejecting around the 413s to 412s, and we just come right back down and we end up failing to get that breakout. So a little pop and drop is what I'm anticipating for SPY as the most likely possibility. If we hold above 413.3, there's going to be potential for upside, but if we reject off it, we're going to see downside, and I think the odds favor a pop and drop on SPY. For the QQQ, I think the same thing is likely going to happen. We could see the triple Q try to push up towards this resistance trend line around 348. Could get to 350, but I'm not really counting on that. I think this imbalance could get filled towards 348 in the morning. Then a rejection, this thing could just start selling off again. If we fail to hold 345.8, watch it come down towards 344. If we lose that, watch 342.6 to potentially 340 below that. But look for a little pop and drop as the most likely possibility. There is potential for downside nonetheless. On Nvidia stock, it's looking like it's on a downtrend overall for now, as we have a large, head and shoulders on the much larger time frames. So if I pull up like the daily chart, just for example, and real quick, you could see that Nvidia has a head and shoulders like pattern as of right now. Could this be a trap for a lot of investors to start shorting very hard before some kind of bounce in November? That's a possibility. But as of right now, this head and shoulders is still playing out, and there's no sign of Nvidia truly turning really bullish just yet. It's been downtrending pretty hard. There's no sign of it just yet trying to reverse, and that's the reason why you need to be prepared for more potential downside. So that's why we're going to be watching these levels very carefully. On Nvidia, we are currently at around 405. We could be forming a flag right here. If we end up breaking below the low we made, if we lose 400, there's a risk of 395 and then 390 below that, and then 386 as key support. 386 is going to be major support for now, so watch that carefully if we do end up breaking down. Now, this could be forming a flag, so I think the most likely possibility is we rebound towards resistance. We have resistance between 407 and 409, so it's going to be very important. If we end up testing this resistance one more time, this could be another liquidity grab towards these imbalances. I could see it getting very close to 410 or so and then rejecting and coming right back down to start sinking towards that 390 area. Part of the reason why I'm saying that is when you look at our different EMAs, they're all telling you some very similar stories, right? We have this resistance at the 20 EMA, which has been acting as resistance as well for Nvidia. The 20 EMA is where we have 414. That could be acting as resistance. So we get a little pop towards there, then a rejection is very possible. So we could see it get close to about 410, if not 414, around that area, and then reject. But either way, I see downside being the more significant move for the next couple of days, approaching FOMC on Wednesday. So look for a little pop and then a drop, and I think that Nvidia could start selling off based off that. So now for just a couple of other tickers, I'm just going to try to be kind of quick, guys. Microsoft has been on a downtrend ever since it got that little pop. Look for a rebound towards 332.6, if not 335. I'm not really counting on 335, though. Maybe like 332 could come. And then a rejection towards the 200 EMA at 328. So look for a little pop and drop on Microsoft. On the Russell 2000, it's looking bearish. It's been on a strong downtrend. Look for a rebound towards 164, then a rejection, and this thing could start sinking towards 158 very soon, as it's still looking weaker. On that's for Microsoft. On AMD, we're also looking bearish. It's continuing to sell off. It's been selling off over the last couple of days below every single one of these EMAs. So watch this resistance at 97.21. If we break it, watch for 99.94, then a rejection, or it could reject off here. It looks like it's going to reject on the 4-hour. So just to be safe, we have to reject off 97 and start sinking towards 93 all over again. Or we pop towards, if we break this, then we can see like 100 and then the rejection. Either way, I see a pop and drop coming nonetheless. Looking at the VIX is on a downtrend, which tells us that the market could still continue to downtrend. There's a head and shoulders on the VIX, which tells me the VIX might drop a little bit because of the market rebounding just a bit. That's why I was talking about like Apple, SPY, Tesla trying to come back up alongside Nvidia just a little bit before we see a move to the downside later on. That is very probable. So the VIX is still on an uptrend, even if it does form this head and shoulders drop a little bit, then bounce. That is still on the table to cause high volatility. For Coinbase, we're looking like we're on a downtrend, so look for a little rebound towards 72.5, maybe even 75.76, depending if we break our 5 EMA or not. But then look for a rejection. Anyways, the 20 EMA is a key resistance, so I could see 75 to 72.5, one of those two. Then a rejection, and it's just gonna continue sinking towards 68. For Google, it's looking less bearish than the market because on the daily chart, we're approaching the 200 EMA. So I could see this rebound just a little bit towards 125 and then reject and come back down for a back test of the 200 EMA at 122. So watch for 125 as this resistance area. We also have this gap down here. It was like 126.5. So around that area, I could see it getting rejected off 125 to 126.5, then coming right back down to 122. And we're going to be watching that very carefully. The yields are going to make a big move depending on what the Fed ends up announcing. So we'll be watching to see what Jerome Powell says. We have a slight downtrend, so that tells me the market might try to rebound a bit. Watch this support right here, this gap support at the 20 EMA at 47.6. That means the stock market might pop a little bit, push up a little bit, and then reject possibly, depending on the 20 EMA. Amazon is not looking the best because we're starting to downtrend a little bit still, even after its move from earnings. If Amazon loses 125, that could be a potential shorting opportunity, and Amazon's going to likely come down to try to fill this gap towards 120. I could see it sinking down if we do lose 125, so watch that as key support. That's going to be very, very important. Meta is also looking a little weaker. We're on a slight downtrend on the daily. You guys can see this. We're forming a flag right here. If Meta fails to hold 300, we're going to start sinking. I think we're going to get a back test of 300 and a rejection. It's going to start sinking towards this 290 area, if not 285. I anticipate a little bit more downside for the stock market, even for Tesla, as we approach FOMC. The market may pop first. Look for a little pop and a rebound in the beginning, and then more selling potentially coming. And then after the selling comes, right after the market continues to sell off, we're going to be watching the FOMC meeting. Let's see what happens with Jerome Powell and the Fed. We're going to be waiting for Wednesday to see if the market gets a big bounce or not. So until then, guys, thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. Enjoy the rest of Sunday. Enjoy some football or whatever you want to do. Have a great time, and I'll see you guys in the next one tomorrow morning for when the market opens. All right? So thank you. Have a great day, and peace out.